Hi, everyone. My name is John Doring, and this is ZoomTRAK. It's another Saturday afternoon. Welcome to all of you. It's June 2025 edition of ZoomTRAK by NRail. NRail is the organization promoting in-scale model railroading. That's NTRAK and TTRAK, Primo-In, home layouts, club layouts, no layouts. It all goes, whatever you got, as long as it's in the normal scale. So again, welcome to everyone. We've got a good lineup to share with you today. I think we're going to kick it off maybe with an announcement or two. We'll have a discussion about 45-degree corners. Talk about screw-in legs, something I need to know a little bit about. And then we'll end with an interesting session on ChatGPT in model railroading. As always, if you have questions, you can use the chat or chime in at the right time. And don't forget, at the end, we'll have a participant poll just to see how we're doing with everyone. So again, welcome everyone. Let's start with announcements.
All right. We've got a quick announcement here that I'm trying to pull up.
All right.
It's just a couple of slides on Kato, and let me see if I can if this will work. Right here on the desktop, we have, oops, we had it right here. All right. So Kato has made an announcement on some mini diorama releases. They came up with a wood kit, and originally I think the list price was something like $11, and they reduced the price on that. But the original kit that they did was still fairly complex. They've come up with a new kit, which is just, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, and it's put together in no time. The most complicated part is screwing the track into the wood base, and then just a little glue, add 2 more crisscross pieces, and you're all done. That's what it looks like while it's being assembled with the track already on it. And so as I said, they originally came out with a wood kit, which was originally $12, and they dropped the price for groups such as ours, clubs, 4-H groups, etc., to $4 per kit. And the new kits are $3.50. They're a lot easier to put together. They're the kind of thing you wanted to show where you don't have to spend a lot of time building the base. The kids can spend most of the time decorating it. And if you need more information on that, you can contact Leon at cotousa.com. There's an M missing here. So anyway, that is it for that announcement.
So Bruce, if you want to buy those, you can't buy those at retail. You have to contact them and buy a package of them for an event. Is that how
That's
it works?
right. You contact Leon and make your arrangements through him, so that you get the discount price as opposed to just ordering off the website.
Okay. And if you use that wood base like that, it would match up with others that are
Yeah,
on the little foam thing.
yeah. Remember that there's a standard piece of UniTRAK on top of there, so regardless of how you make it, whether it's foam, more complicated wood, or 3D print it, they all match together because it's just connecting the standard UniTRAK piece.
Fantastic.
At the standard height.
At the standard height, right? Okay. All right. Super fantastic. Okay, so next up is 45-degree corners. Is that a video?
Yes, it is. and
Or
we will get that going right now. I've always wondered what Terry's angle was in doing these, and then we find out it's 45 and 30 degrees.
Welcome to Talkin' T-Track. This time we're going to talk about 45-degree corners. Our T-Track system is based on 90-degree corners and the need for tables, but 45-degree corners are possible to serve a purpose or just for variety. My friends of Milwaukee area NRail wanted to make their display layout fit the round room space at the Milwaukee Mitchell Park domes better than what could be done with the usual 90-degree corners. To more closely follow the contour of the wall, they thought 45-degree corners would help. These are the curved ZoomTRAK pieces available to make 45-degree corners. Double track 481 and 718 millimeter radius 45s can be created by adding a 29 millimeter straight. Using matching 718 or 481 millimeter radius curves to create a double track 45-degree corner requires a 29 millimeter straight track piece. Some slight tweaking of the track when laying will be required, but the track piece separations allow minor track flexing. This will not work with smaller radius curve track. This is a slight modification of the 33 millimeter straight track trick for 90-degree corners. There are two standard table widths, 24 or 30 inches. The bad thing about table angles is the size of the gap at the spread end. At a 45-degree angle of table rotation, the corner gaps are about 22 3/4 and 18 1/4 inches respectively. The largest gap must be spanned by the outside corner of the supported layout. Single table wide standard T-Track layouts have the largest gap to span and may require a small sheet of thin plywood. Maybe. Now these are standard layouts 4 different ways. Standard single table wide layouts with a single track joining the loops on either side of the 45-degree curve. At the very top, the small 315 282 millimeter radii 45-degree outer corner will require added modules and a support sheet of plywood. Next, the 718 millimeter radius 45-degree outer corner with added 62 millimeter straights on the ends to span the large table gap will sit on the table quite nicely. Next, the small 315 282 millimeter radii 45-degree inner corner will fit without any difficulties. But the bottom, the basic large 718 millimeter radius 45-degree common inner corner gives you nice large curves for long or fast trains. This is a standard single table wide layout for standard 315 282 millimeter corners and junctions. Single table wide standard T-Track layouts place the outside 45-degree corner at the largest point of the angled table gap. As a result, a thin piece of plywood or other material about 16 by 30 inches may be required to support the module spanning the gap. Or the outside 7/18 45-degree corner could include the 62 millimeter straight track pieces on each end of the corner, creating a longer module that would span the large gap between the tables. So let's consider that as a standard common build that can be used anywhere. And the inner corner is also a 7/18 millimeter corner that does not require any added length, because it will always be at the smallest gap of the table arrangement. Standard double table wide layout. Now, standard T-track, when you add a single between your corners and junctions, widening the layout requires double wide tables. In this case, the 7/18 millimeter radius curves more than adequately span the gaps. And again, you'll notice we're using what I would like to call a common large outer curve, which includes the 62 millimeter pieces. If you widen the layout even further by putting two singles or doubles between the two sides, then that pushes the outer curve even closer to the edge of the tables over the wider gap. My little trick is to use standard junctions, creating more loops, and the junctions used are somewhat shorter by a few millimeters than the doubles, so the little spacer modules are again a different size. Large T-track corners and junctions, the corners that use 447, 480 millimeter radius track, and large junctions always require double table wide. In this particular case, the 7/18 millimeter outer corner does not include the 62 millimeter pieces for this diagram to show that it would indeed work in this case. And the common 7/18 millimeter inner curve is also perfectly functional. When you have a continuous loop, the situation isn't too different from previously, except that now you've got a continuous loop and not simply a curved spine between the two. If you add singles between the corners and junctions of a large T-track layout, again, the outer curve is pushed further out over the wider gap, and those added 62 millimeter pieces just means the legs will not be clawing on the edge of the table trying to hang on. Now, if we look at the inner and outer curves and make them a common design for all layouts, then if the inside and outside 45-degree corners are common, a stash of the various spacers allows the creation of any layout desired. The small spacers need not be full modules. The small multi-piece spacers could simply be track on a small piece of plywood for structure, and suspended between modules by the rail joiners, a not uncommon situation. I was asked by a friend to include 30-degree corners, so here we are. Although smaller radii 30-degree corners are possible too, the larger corner based on the 718 millimeter radius 15-degree curved track pieces is recommended. 29 millimeter and 45 millimeter straight track pieces are required. Again, why do I recommend the large curves? First, they can be used on any layout design, and second, they are much nicer for long or fast trains. Now, a standard single table wide layout with 30-degree corners. Again, we're using standard T-track corners of 315, 282 millimeter radius curves and standard junctions. The outside 718 millimeter 30-degree corner includes the 62 millimeter straight track pieces on each end of the corner, creating a longer module that would span the large gap between the tables. Still, that outer curve is at the edge of the tables, spanning the largest gap. Standard double table wide. Same thing as before, only different. We're still adding singles between the corners and those junctions. And now we're just simply using 30-degree corners rather than 45s, and everything fits quite nicely. Doubles between the two sides of the layout, again, only with 30-degree corners. Again, with the larger outer corner, with the 62 millimeter straight track pieces on each end of the curve, has no problem spanning the gap and being very stable on the tables as we create the layout. And another version of my use of junctions and creating loops. Now again, all these various layouts have different size spacers, but all of the inner and outer curves, corners, are the same. So, 30-degree corner commonality, same as the 45s. If the inside and outside 30-degree corners are common to all layout designs, again, a stash of the various spacers allows the creation of any layout desired. The small spacers need not be full modules, and the small multi-piece spacers could simply be track on a small piece of plywood for structure and suspended between modules by the rail joiners. So, 45-degree corners and 30-degree corners are very possible. Again, I recommend the use of the 718 millimeter radius curves, nice for long trains and fast trains, but the module designs are up to the builder, and similar situations can be created with smaller radii curved track, but they may not be as useful in various designs as the larger ones. Thanks for watching.
All right. We do have a couple of questions going on in the chat, and I think they have to do with, in those pictures, understanding what the length of the tables are shown, because they're not all the same. There's some offset in there. So there was a question about how big the tables are. There was one answer that said they were 8 feet long, but then again, there's different lengths shown in that picture. Does anybody have a comment about what the standard table size is? I guess not just width, but length. I mean,
I
keep
don't
track.
think, yeah, I don't
Well,
think.
usually
it's here.
6 and 7 foot is 6 and 8 foot is a standard.
6 footers and 8 footers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. But unless you can get 48s, of course, too. But the drawing, it's kind of looks like it's a foot different
Right. It did. It did.
to
Right.
visually scale it.
I was guessing the same thing, Dirk. In the picture, it looked like they were using one that was 1 foot longer than the other one, but really the standards are 2 feet longer, huh? 6 or 8. Does that make sense?
We'll capture these comments and pass them on to Terry.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, super. Well, that's neat. Hadn't even thought of that. All right. Screw in legs. Do we have a presentation here or is this
Yes, I
a
do.
video?
Yes, we do.
All right.
Let me click on it here.
That's Lee. Lee, you're on deck here, or you're in the batter's box now, aren't you?
Okay. This is okay. Everybody should be able to see it at this point. Let's see if I can
Yeah.
get the slideshow to start. There we go.
There you
This is
go.
about 3D printed NTRaK module legs. Back in the March 2023 ZoomTRAK, I gave a briefing on wood threaded legs, as shown here, and on the block made of 5 layers of oak to do modules. Since that time, Cliff Pelchat came up, designed the 4 parts using a Sharp 3G 3D CAD parametric CAD that were shown here. So now you can use 3D printing instead of having to thread the wood, and I'm going to be briefing you on how that works. Here's his line drawing that he gave me of that. And the thing to note here is that the block is that I'm going to show you is 3.5 inches tall, which will work with a standard NTRaK module with made of a 1x4 frame.
Nice.
Okay, tools you'll need to make these things. First, you'll need a ruler that's at least 38 inches long. You'll need a pencil and Sharpie. You'll need a FDM 3D printer, and this is just a generic one I'm showing here. I'm not going to go into what specific brands of 3D FDM printers, but these are filament printers. A miter or chop saw, and um, and then you'll also need a drill with a screwdriver bit and a countersink. The materials, Walt said to use PLA plus or PTEG filament. You'll need some either wood glue or Gorilla Glue. And you'll need 1.25 inch dowels for the legs. And these I show using poplar ones that are 48 inches long to start with. And you'll need some wood screws. Generally, I would recommend using number 8, 1.25 inch, and I'll be getting to that in a minute. Okay, there are 4 STL files. STL files, of course, are the files that have 3D CAD files that you use to make the print files for your 3D printing. The first one is the leg block STL, which makes the block for the leg. Then there's the thread cap, which makes the caps with the thread that fits over the dowel. There's a leg nut, which can help lock. You can use to lock the thread, leg cap, and then there's a foot or bottom of the leg cap. Now, you'll need to use whatever your preferred slicer program is to generate a 3D print file for your printer. You need to print it without supports, and the thread cap is upside down. You'll notice in this diagram that the thread cap is printed with the open end facing up, and it's very important to do that. Brim was used on the thread cap, and the block and nut were printed with 15% infill, and I'll show you that a little bit more coming up. So here are some pictures of the 3D printing in progress. Here it is early in the print. One thing you'll note here is you can see what the infill is like on the nut and the block there, where it's mostly open space and makes it mostly hollow, and that reduces the amount of filament and the weight of the parts. Here's a little further along in the 3D print process. You'll notice that the foot is now complete. A little further along, the nut is complete and it's continuing to print the block and the thread cap. And here is the completed 3D printing for the 4 components. Okay, the 1.25" dowel. Here's the formulas for figuring out the length you need for the 1.25" dowel. NTRAK's got a 39-inch height minimum. Got 1/8 of an inch for the track, 1/8 of an inch for the roadbed, 1/2 inch for the plywood, 1/8 of an inch on the thread cap. This is something that the other one didn't have. 1/4 of an inch on the leg cap at the bottom, which comes out to 37 7/8 inches for the dowel. So you need to mark and cut the dowel at 37 7/8 inches. Then it's simply a matter of glue the thread cap and the leg cap with the wood or Gorilla Glue. And here's what the finished leg looks like with the threaded one end and the cap at the foot. Leg travel. This is like the other one I meant. It gives you 2 inches of travel with 1.5 inches of thread engagement. It's very similar to what the other ones were, how the other ones work. If needed, the block in the module can be raised a little bit more. The leg nut can then be used to lock the leg block in place after you've leveled the module, and this will help to improve the leg stability. Okay, installation. With a 15% infill, the block needs to be glued to the frame. Screws may also be used, but you need to ensure the screws don't protrude into the hole. And I use 1.25" number 8 wood screws for a 3/4 inch thick frame. And here's the spacing that's good for either 1 1/8" or 2 7/8 inch from the corner of the module, outside corner of the module. On your module, mark where you want to install the screws, and that's at the 1 1/8" and 2 7/8 from the module corner, diagonally opposite each other, and avoid the frame screws. So you notice I've got them a little off in height from the 2 frame screws. And put them on both sides for a total of 4 screws. Clamp and glue the blocks in both directions, as I'm shown here with 2 clamps. Use the wood or Gorilla Glue, and the top of the block should be against the bottom of the plywood sub roadbed. Drill the pilot holes with the right countersink. In this case, a number 8 countersink set to the right length for the screw you're using. And then drive the screws to attach the block, and then test your installation. Screw the legs in all the way and ensure nothing interferes with the threads. And the legs let you level the modules while standing with the track in level view, just like the other ones did. Finally, where to get these STL files. Here is the place where Bruce put the STL files. You'll notice he'll list all 4 files. You just click on that download icon, and that will download the files. And Bruce, I think you can put that address in the chat box.
Correct. If you look at chat, you'll see the link in there.
So if anybody's interested in making that, go ahead and download those STL files. Or just save the link so you can do it later.
If you have any questions or problems getting the files, you can always just send an email to bruce@nrail.org, and I can forward questions to Lee or fix any drive issues.
Any questions?
Do the screws in the threaded block have much of a grip on the infill. No, they don't. The inside of the thread on the block is not part of the infill. The infill is actually between the outside of the block and the female threads on the inside. Does that answer your question?
I think maybe just the fact those screws are screwing into that part of the block that's got that lattice in it, right?
Well, the
So
lattice is in between the outside of the block and the
right.
female threads on the inside, but the female
Yeah.
threads on the inside are completely have a solid wall.
Right. Right.
But you're screwing into that lattice work.
When you screw them on. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. That's why we recommended that you glue them. I see what you mean. You're talking about the screws for attaching it to the frame. I thought you were
Right.
talking about the screw in
Right.
the
Oh,
leg. Okay, sorry. Excuse me. I misunderstood you. No, that's why we recommend you glue it, because it really, the screw only holds onto the outer part of the block,
Yeah.
and that's not real thick.
Yeah. Yeah. So you need to both the gluing and the screwing to make
Yeah,
sure.
the screw is nice because it'll hold the block in place till the glue dries, and you don't have to keep the clamps on the whole time.
So Lee, the first iteration of this that you did was a wood leg screwing into a wood block, correct?
Yes.
And so I'm just curious. I think this is really, really innovative and really cool. And anything that makes it easier to get up and running is good. But in the first iteration, then you had wood threads on wood, and now we have plastic threads on plastic. Are there any issues about like whether those wear out over time because they're kind of the same material or they're sort of soft? Or have you had any challenges like that? Do they strip out or
Which, the wood or the 3D print
well, either.
material?
I'm just wondering how
Well, like I
how
said, the
careful
wood
you have to
we
be with
seem
them,
to
you
have
know?
held up pretty well. I mean, on that one, you have to get sometimes the threads on the poplar legs chip. I haven't had any problems with the oak and the blocks wearing out, but that's a harder wood.
Yeah.
On these, we've made some that we've used in a couple shows. We haven't really had any that we've around for years and years and years, but I don't think there's going to be any particular wear problems.
Okay.
It might get a little bit looser with use, but that's part of why Cliff came up with the that lock nut to lock the leg in place and keep it more stable.
Well, I always think of these kinds of things as a perfect metaphor for why we should be involved with each other in clubs. Because you don't have to figure everything out yourself. Somebody comes up with this idea, another person figures out how to make it a product. Then we share around how to get it. If you wanted one of these, but you didn't know how to print yourself, I bet you could find somebody else in the community that could do that for you. It's just a kind of a neat connecting each other helps us to connect all these modules together.
Okay, Paul, your question on friction. There's a little bit of friction, but not a whole lot. When Cliff designed it, he made just a little bit of play in the design, so there's enough that it has a little friction when you're turning it. If it's not too much.
Okay. Other questions? All right. Thank you very much, Lee. Appreciate that. Good information. And now we have Chat GPT and model railroading. Let's see what.
Bruce, do you want me to show the video or are you playing?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
If you got it.
You got it. All right. Hello, and welcome to today's presentation on using ChatGPT and artificial intelligence, also known as AI, in model railroading. Let's get started. Today's presentation is going to cover a couple of points. The first being, what is ChatGPT? Then we'll roll into how you can use ChatGPT in model railroading. I have a couple of use cases to review, including selecting different type of paints, using ChatGPT for layout ideas. So we'll delve into that in the second section. Next, we'll move on to how to set up a ChatGPT account. And the great news is it's free. Then after that, I'll do a little bit of a live demo. And lastly, we'll wrap up. The first question you might be having is, what is ChatGPT? Well, think of ChatGPT like this. It's not quite a search engine like Google, because with Google, you type in a request, let's say Norfolk Southern, and it's just going to bring up various links or articles that it thinks is relevant to those terms that you punched in the search engine. ChatGPT is a lot like having a more natural conversation with someone who has read a million books and articles, and they're very knowledgeable on whatever subject that you might be asking about. How it works? Well, ChatGPT, it was trained by reading a huge amount of textbooks, websites, manuals, forums, articles, and more. Some of the materials that were used to train ChatGPT is public knowledge because they have licensing agreements. Others are not published publicly. So it's a little bit of a gray area on what exactly made it into that training data. However, it is a huge breadth of human knowledge. It learned patterns in how people write and respond. So having a conversation with ChatGPT, as you'll see during the demo, and some of the examples I provided, is quite natural. Again, as if you were talking with your buddy at the train club. When you ask the question of ChatGPT predicts the best answer based on everything it has learned. So it's not definitive, and that's a very important pitfall with these chatbots like ChatGPT, is that always remember, that saying trust but verify. So if you are using it for any type of in-depth research, make sure you don't take anything that it says at true face value until you've done some additional research on your own. Here's a little bit of a graphic of how ChatGPT works, and of course this is really oversimplified, but it gives you the gist of how these type of models, how the back end looks like. At the very beginning, you have a user input. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT a really broad question. Hey, what is N-scale? ChatGPT in the background is then going to troll through large amounts of data that it has. So it might be books or articles or a website, and it's going to formulate an answer. It's going to give you a response. N-scale is a model railroad scale. It's a hobby, something along those lines. Now, a couple of ideas to keep in mind with the data that ChatGPT was trained on is that most data in ChatGPT is pre-September 2021, with some updates for more advanced subscriptions. Again, you don't have to pay for a ChatGPT account, but if you do want some more current data post-2021, you do have to pay for some advanced subscriptions. So if you're going to ask it about more recent developments in the railroad industry or model railroad sector, it may not return an answer. Other things to keep in mind is the type of data that ChatGPT was trained on. So it was, it does include information on books, so published materials related to trains, railroads, and model railroading. It is a little spotty though, because a lot of times they were unable to access holdings of, let's say, model railroader or model railroad craftsman or railroad model craftsman, or some of the other hobby press because of copyright concerns. So again, a little bit of a gray area because ChatGPT does not explicitly publish what materials the model or the artificial intelligence was trained on. We're not entirely sure if, let's say, model railroader made it into the algorithm. However, a bunch of other references and resources did. Online articles and hobbyist blogs were also included in ChatGPT training data information from forums similar to like Trainboard or Reddit, and hobbyist websites likely made it into ChatGPT's knowledge base. Of course, Wikipedia as well, which is an encyclopedic source. It has pretty much everything on it, and includes overviews of scales like N, H, L, O, standards and terminology. It is pulling from Wikipedia to help it generate a response to you. Lastly, historical content. Again, AI was trained on general knowledge, and that would, by just a virtue of U.S. history, it would also roll in information about U.S. railroads, rolling stock industries, scenery regions, and of course a little bit of model railroad history. Important caveats. Again, it does not pull from copyrighted magazines. So think of Model Railroader unless content was freely available online or ChatGPT paid for licensing. Also, it does not access current product catalogs, manufacturer websites, or proprietary club content. So if you ask it a question about ZoomTRAK, it's not going to go back and say, yes, in episode 26, this is what was covered. Um, Now, explicitly or officially, ChatGPT is claiming they do not pull from product catalogs. However, and what you'll see in the demo, it is knowledgeable about products. Specifically, when I use a use case about Vallejo paint, it's able to tell me what paint color I should use, including the product number. So there is a little bit of a gray area in terms of asking it about products and manufacturers. Again, the last thing to keep in mind, though, even though you are having a natural conversation with ChatGPT, it's a simulation. So it simulates answers based on known patterns. So it can create industry names, but they might be fictional. It's going to come up with plausible freight concepts, but again, that's just based on an estimated guess, as well as scenery guides. But again, of course, these are all generated based on prior exposure to similar text, and it's not going to be copied from a single source. So if you're hoping to ask it to build you a consist based on a 1955 New York Central timetable, you're kind of out of luck. However, it can build you that same concept by pulling from a variety of sources from the 1950s. So it's not going to pull from a single source. It's going to pull from a collection of sources and then produce kind of its estimated guess. Now, how can model railroaders use ChatGPT? Well, there's a number of ways that you can use it, and the examples that I'm using today are in no way to limit you. It's just because there's so many uses for it, I kind of narrowed it down to what I felt would be the most useful or the most common. Using ChatGPT and model railroading, here's the four, I think, the four best uses that pop up immediately. The first is information on techniques, so you can get some guidance on layout design, weathering, and operations. It is not good at designing track plans. It's not quite there yet, so please don't ask it to design you a basement empire. It'll come back with a cute-looking graphic and not much more than that. However, it does have good ideas when it comes to, let's say, shading. If you want to shade, use shading as part of your weathering technique on a boxcar, it can recommend certain color types and techniques. Ideas and inspiration, I think, is one of the most useful aspects about ChatGPT. So it can suggest ideas for a track plan. It's just not going to design it for you. Same deal with industry. So let's say you're interested in maybe having an oil refinery. You can ask ChatGPT what type of rail served cars or rolling stock would be going to and from the oil refinery. We can even create a kind of like a commodities list of what it would be receiving and shipping. Scenery as well. If you let ChatGPT know, hey, I'm interested in recreating a rural short line in, let's say, Montana, it could come back with some scenery ideas. Again, all text-based, it's not going to create a graphic for you that would be quite useful, but it can create kind of a list and some ideas that it'll throw out there. Another thing that I use it for are reference measurements. I'm always forgetting what a road in N scale would be, what size it would be. So I'll ask it that question. And how what's the width and N scale of a double lane highway, something along that nature, and it comes right back to it. Let's see, and this is the one that I find really, really useful, is matching paint from photos. So as you'll see in the next slide, you can upload photos to ChatGPT and ask it, hey, what color paint would that be? And in my case, I use Vallejo paint. So I'll ask, hey, what color paint in Vallejo would this building be? And it'll provide you its best guess. And for the most part, it's been pretty spot on. So this is that example I just mentioned previously. I'm going to use ChatGPT to match paint for Ringo's station. For those of you unfamiliar with Ringo's, it's a tourist line depot on the Black River in Western, which is located in central New Jersey. It was my childhood railroad and a railroad that I'm currently striving to model. And the goal here is to recreate the look and feel of this historic Ringo station in accurate N scale colors using Vallejo paint. So what I did is I uploaded a reference photo that I obtained online of the station shown at the right here. I then asked ChatGPT to help identify Vallejo paints that were equivalent for the visible building colors, right? So you have the main walls, the trim and window sashes, and then lastly, kind of the roof. And with the roof, you see just a little bit of that dark gray peeking through there. And it came back with these responses. So it said for the trim, I should use Vallejo light gray number 70993. For the walls, I should use Vallejo dark red, number 70946. And for the roof, I should use medium sea gray, or 7870. And this was really useful because it turns out I had two of the paints, and then the third one, the white gray, I just had to order from Amazon, and it came right. And when I painted up the building, it matched the photo pretty well. Here's another idea. Let's say you are working on a small little shelf layout, and you would like to model a passing siding, but you're not sure you're a little lost for inspiration. Well, hey, ChatGPT can help for that. Let me ask ChatGPT, I would like to model a passing siding with a small industry and a forested hillside behind the backdrop. And it comes right back and says, well, how about a gravel company or stone yard, both of which are small, easy to model industries, nestled between the tracks and the slope leading up to a dense forest. And it actually went ahead, and in addition to letting me know about the gravel company and the stone yard and the forest, it generated a little image, and that's displayed on the right there. Now, again, for modeling purposes, that's kind of it's a little bit more ambiguous. It's not going to, again, create a track plan, but I kind of look at this image now and I'm like, okay, maybe I can model that, or it's going to give me some ideas. Here's another example, and this is, let's say you want to do a proto-freelance or a freelance railroad, and you want to come up with some fictional towns and industries. So here's the scenario. You're building a ZoomTRAK module set in the 1950s, but you want it to feel authentic with realistic names and a sense of local history. So you ask ChatGPT, hey, give me 10 fictional small town names in Pennsylvania inspired by coal country history. Also, you can ask it to suggest names for industries that would have existed in that town during the 1950s. So it comes back with two sets of answers from ChatGPT. First, provide you with some town names. So you have Red Creek, Mount Glen, Glebe, Elk Run, Ash Hollow, Elk Run, Broadfield. And it also comes up with some industry ideas. So you have the Red Creek Coal and Coke Company. You have Glade Valley Ice and Storage, Run Tool and Die Works, Feed and Grain, Brickworks, right? I mean, a couple of those industries, because of all the historical text that ChatGPT has absorbed through its training models, it knows that coal and coke industries and ice storage industries would have kind of been appropriate for that time period that you specified, which was the 1950s. Setting up a ChatGPT account. It's really easy. You first want to go to the website chat.openai.com. I recommend using that link directly because if you Google, ChatGPT account, there are a bunch of knockoffs that are floating around. So you want to get to the actual official ChatGPT website. ChatGPT is owned by a nonprofit organization called OpenAI, so that's why you see OpenAI in the web address. And when you do that, you'll see a sign up button. You're going to click on that button, and all you need to provide is an email address. Or you can link and create your ChatGPT account using your existing Google, Microsoft, or Apple account. It's going to ask you to verify your email, and it may also ask you to verify your phone number. Now, when you set up an account in ChatGPT and you're able to log in, it's really important to have an initial conversation. And I know that kind of sounds a little bit strange because we're talking about a computer software. But when you start your first chat, you want to not just say, "Hey, give me layout design ideas for a 1950s shoreline." No. ChatGPT now has all this historical and hobby information in it, but it doesn't know anything about you, the modeler. So what I like to do with ChatGPT after I log in, right, my account set up, is have an initial conversation with it and kind of set the stage, provide it context, because the more context you provide, the better the response you're going to get. And there's actually a term for this now, and that's called prompt engineering, PROMPT. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a chat with ChatGPT, and I'm going to, again, as if I'm having a conversation with, let's say, a new friend I met at a hobby show or a clinic. Hello, I am an N-scale model railroader with an interest in northeastern railroads in the modern era, especially CSX and Norfolk Southern. And then I may continue on with some additional information. I might say I'm really interested in gondolas and scrap yards, things of that nature. This is called, again, prompt engineering or introductory prompt. And you want to provide ChatGPT with some of these relevant details. First you want to let it know right off the bat what scale you're modeling. So I model in N scale. Next, let ChatGPT understand your geographic focus or region, if that exists. I'm interested in northeastern U.S. railroads, but I might be interested in Southwest as well, things of that nature. Of course, let it know the time period or the error. I focus on the modern era, 2000s to present. You can even say I focus on the steam era, the steam to diesel transition era, the early diesel era, because it'll be familiar with those terms and it will link it to different time periods. Of course, you wanted to let it know as well prototype railroads I'm interested. I'm interested in CSX. I'm interested in Norfolk Southern. In my case, I'm interested in the Black River and Western. And of course, modeling themes or scenery interests. I like industrial switching. I like short lines. I like mainline freight, things like that. And again, this is not to limit you. You can expand on this list and provide it with as much detail as you want. I generally set a benchmark of 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes of just feeding it information about myself and my interest. Another technique, as well, is after you provide ChatGPT with that information, you can actually ask it, hey, do you have any additional questions for me? And it may come back to you with some questions. And let's say, I notice you're interested in the modern era. Do you model the 2000s or the 2010s? Or I noticed you're interested in CSX. How about the historical CSX predecessor railroads like Seaboard Central, Seaboard System, stuff like that. Next, let's move on to a demo where I'll apply a couple of these use cases in an actual ChatGPT chat. Okay, and welcome to our live demo now with ChatGPT. So this is after I created my account and I logged in to the ChatGPT website, and I'm presented with this large, I'm almost tempted to say search bar. And this is where you can go ahead and initiate your chat. Now, I already went ahead and wrote my introductory prompt, and I'm going to paste it into this bar. Okay, so my introductory prompt says, hello, I'm an N-scale model railroader with a focus on modern era northeastern U.S. railroads, especially Black River and Western, CSX, and Norfolk Southern. I enjoy modeling small towns with light industry, switching operations, and realistic scenery. I'm looking for layout ideas, industry suggestions, and prototype inspiration that fits this theme. And as you can tell now, I went ahead, I initiated the conversation, and ChatGPT is going to start generating ideas based on what my interests were. So you can see it's responding back to me. It's saying, hey, Matthew, based on your interest in modern era northeastern U.S. railroads, especially the Black River, CSX, and NS, combined with a love for small towns, here are some layout ideas and prototype information based on and tailored to your N-scale goals. So you can tell right now ChatGPT is providing me with some layout themes and concepts and suggesting, hey, maybe a rural branch line with some heritage tourist operations could be up your alley. It's pulling from Ringo's and Flemington, which are actually the prototypical locations that the Black River and Western serves. Now, keep in mind, I didn't tell ChatGPT that the Black River and Western is in Ringo's or that's even in New Jersey or the Northeast. It was able to pull that information using its vast knowledge holdings. Provide me with some concepts and saying I might be interested in a one-track small industrial park, as well as having some excursion trains. And again, in real life, the prototype Black River does run excursion trains, so it is pulling that from some historical knowledge. It's saying here for prototype inspiration, I should also consider doing a short line interchange with regional lines like the Morristown and Erie. And then I might also be interested in a modern industrial park with a little bit of an urban edge. And it's pulling that from Carteret or South Kearney, New Jersey, saying, hey, modern warehouses, consider transloads, and tank cars. Now, for industry suggestions, it's saying a lumber yard, plastics manufacturer, cold storage facility, propane dealer, feed mills, small steel distributor, transload for the municipal government, like salt, sand, and gravel, paper products. I mean, these are all industries that would feel relatively at home on a small branch line or small short line. So again, it's taking my interest and it's kind of curating these responses. Next, it's talking, ChatGPT provided me with some scenic elements I should consider based on my interests, concrete grade crossings because I like modern railroading, built up warehouses, jersey barriers, graffiti tag boxcars. And now it's actually even giving me some layout size ideas. And keep in mind, I didn't really put any constraints on what I'm looking for in terms of building a next layout. It's just pulling all this information, curating these responses based on what it thinks my interest may be. Next, I'm going to ask ChatGPT to ask me some questions. What this is going to do is allow it to fill in any blanks it might have. Again, just like you're having a conversation with your buddy at a train show, he might have some questions back to you to gain a better understanding of what you are talking about. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT, do you have any additional questions for me? And it's saying yes. It's always, here's a spoiler, we'll always ask you questions back for the most part, if you do ask it to ask you questions. So now here it's asking me some questions to refine down its answers. It's saying, hey, how much available space do I have? Do I want my railroad to be operations focused or more scenery? So think about running a train just in a loop versus doing switching ops. Question number 3 that's asking me back is it said, hey, I mentioned modern era, but are you thinking 2000s, 2010s, or even contemporary, present day? Locomotive fleet, rolling stock interests, club compatibility. Will the layout be used independently or integrated into your NRail club modules? Scenic interests. Again, I said I like a small, short line. This is going to be a short line based in a rural farmland or an urban industrial area, small town America. And of course, too, and I love this, it's asking me, do I use DCC or DC? And do I have any interest in automation or sound-equipped locomotives? Now, for the sake of time, I'm not going to answer these questions, but I want to show you another example. And again, using my favorite prototype, the Black River and Western. The last example I want to show is using ChatGPT to color match paints that are on a prototype structure and then translating that to airbrushing colors. So for this, again, using the Black River and Western, I want to model their depot in Ringgoes, New Jersey. So I'm going to first go to Google and I'm going to type in a search for the Ringgoes depot. I'm going to go to images. I'm looking for a nice shot of the building, preferably in daylight. This one will do right here. I take this image from Google, and to give credit to the author, it looks like the photographer was Kevin Medor, 2023. I can drag this to my desktop. I'm going to open back my ChatGPT, and I'm going to click and drag the image. And it's now uploaded to ChatGPT, and I am going to tell it I am interested in modeling the Ringgoes depot. Based on the photo, what color Vallejo paints should I use for the model structure? And here you go. It's provided me a couple of suggestions. And what's really great too is it's given me, because I use almost exclusively Vallejo paints, it's provided me with both the name of the paint as well as the color code. So it says here for the siding, which looks like a weathered red, I should consider using a burnt red, which is a 70.814 is the product code, as well as there's an alternative color, 70.982, which is a cavalry brown if I was going for a more aged or brownish tone. So it's actually popping in some weathering tips as well in each response. For the trim, again, it's an off-white or an aged white. It provides me some additional suggestions. What I like too is it's kind of giving me alternatives, right? So for the trim, if I'm looking for a slightly warmer tone, I should consider the ivory color. And thank you so much for watching this presentation on using AI and model railroading with ChatGPT. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay, Matthew, thank you for all of that. Any questions for anyone?
John, I'm going to go ahead and put up the poll since we're almost at the top of the hour, and
Okay.
we can go out with questions.
Any questions? Matthew, I use ChatGPT a lot in my work, in my professional life. I have a paid version of the upgrade, which I think does show when you need like newer
Yes.
information. And one of the things I've noticed is it's quite good at sourcing from something very specific. So, for instance, you're out in your garage and you're building a module and you can't remember where your NRail book is, and you think, what was the spacing of this and that? If you ask a very specific question for which there's only one source,
Yes.
like the NRail module guide, it's very much like just like Google searching, right? It just goes and gets that one piece of information. It's been very helpful for me in my professional life, but I haven't used it very much in model railroading. So you've stimulated a lot of interest for me today.
There you go. Hopefully that could change. And it certainly does have a lot of standards details, right? Like the NTRAK information, like you said, even T-Track and FreeMoN as well.
Right, right. That's awesome. Fantastic. All right. Chris asked, how far are we from AI being able to read images of things like buildings and divide them up into depths? Yeah.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet, unfortunately. It's not going to generate 3D printer files or CAD files or anything like that, but it can suggest building materials. It's also great at estimating measurements and converting them to your scale.
Yeah. Yeah. My general answer to that in my work world is when people says, how far are we from XYZ? My answer is, I don't know, but I think it's probably not as far as we think it is.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. That was really cool. All right. Well, I think we're about there. Bruce, do you have anything else?
Nope, not at this time. Oh, yeah, I think I just want to mention the fact that for those of you who are into T-Track, we've got a sale going on. Go to the store on nrail.org and click on store, and you will find we've got a special for T-Track cabooses and extended 1 year membership and some pins, all for I think it's $50. So that's another thing. Somebody mentioned Father's Day.
Yeah.
You can always give your dad or suggest to somebody to give to their dad an NRail membership, or give them an NRail or a T-Track caboose. So there's gift memberships are available.
Fantastic. Look at Bruce hawking NRail stuff on the call today here. Good job, man. All right, everyone. Well, thank you again, as always, for spending some of your Saturday afternoon with the NRail community. Tell a friend about it. Get some more people in here. Let's see if we can keep growing this thing. Keep bringing your ideas. And of course, as Bruce almost always says, next time you look in the mirror, consider that you might be the one to be giving us a presentation in the months that are coming up ahead.
I've got one other very quick thing, John. We just had somebody who said that they haven't been getting their emails, and I checked up on the website, and they are. Those emails may be going into the junk folder.
Yeah.
And so you're missing out, or for that matter, if you belong to a club and there are other club members, help them out. Find out if they're getting emails, and if not, you can always, in a club environment, print out a copy of the newsletter and spread it around. Remind people about ZoomTRAK. We're here to help one another and to share. So that's hope everybody has a good weekend, and we'll see you next month.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.